Hi, Matt.
How are we doing? Let's give it a couple minutes. See if Matt jumps on here and anybody else. I apologize. I'm running way behind right now. I spent last week moving my mother out of her house, and that was a pretty taxing um, endeavor. So, but the good news for me is my sister gets to deal with the moving her into the next house, and the moving truck just showed up in Hilton Head for her. So they are, yeah, I'm already getting text messages like, how do we put the bunk beds back together? How do we do this? How do we do that? I'm like,
And Matt, what did you say? 23 years of accumulation?
well, 23 years of accumulation there, but they moved that house from Corning, which is just, an hour south of there. And while they said they were going to get rid of everything for that move, like I went back and I found like she was mad at me because I threw out my Letterman jacket from high school. Like this. Does anybody know if Matt is coming or
He's supposed to. Give him a minute.
give him a second? Yeah.
Mm.
Um, yeah, and I'll apologize. Jim, thank you for reaching out on that email and kind of taking some steps to go forward. I will say I was taken aback by our meeting last week. I felt like it wasn't in the same productive manner that we normally operate. And I didn't do a good job of getting it back on track. So we'll push forward this week and make sure that we're productive and we get our ideas together. Um, One of the things that I'm looking at is that the advisory committee. Um, I think that that's going to be a very strong thing in the future. And that should probably be one of our key focuses is on strengthening and formalizing the role of that advisory committee. What's the current name of it?
The code advisory committee? Is that
Code
what
advisory
you-
committee. Yeah, yeah, and making it much more like the building code um, uh, group. So I have a call on that later this week, just to kind of. There's a couple cross committee people joining that call. So if anybody wants to join that to listen in, that'd be fine. I can get you that information, but just a little question and answer thing with some people, so we better understand how they do it on that side, and maybe make some recommendations on this side. Because I think that organization will provide a really good framework for managing change and directing this process in the future. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move forward. Um, I can share my screen. Jim, do you mind just kind of walking us through your thoughts and your email and the response that you got and kind of help us, capture the sentiment of that discussion so we can kind of put it into what we're working on here.
Okay. So if I go back to my original draft, um, I'm sort of winging this a little bit, and I apologize. Um, we need to make it again a little. I don't know how much more realistic. Um, we need to increase on it, but I guess our besides being realistic and practical, I guess it has to be more worldish. So we need to combine the real world scenarios and requirements, plus combine it with our, wish list. I don't want us to lose our wish list and following up on Bob's response to my email, but we also should not be blindsided and not grasp, writing these recommendations with the understanding of the process on how these things are going to be, approved.
And I think we can achieve some of that by, instead of saying, hey, this is what we want you to do for staffing, we can just change that to say, here's our observation. Our observation is that your current staffing is X, Y, and Z. And we don't think that works well. So that's our observation. Here's what our recommendation is.
Right. And I think and it would be also appropriate. Here's our observation, and here is something we believe should be a more significant priority. Or that, that the department should make more resources available for, say resources, not staffing, and hopefully that, helps.
So if our observation is more staffing, then we're not looking at a reorganization, also. Or if we are going to be looking at a reorganization, then we would have to require more staffing for those new, that new subgroup that we called it land use, but then I think we changed that name to more recreational, for the pools and campgrounds.
And one of Miriam's feedback was, legislator does not legislate, the agency structure, so there to give to legislature a feedback that says you got to change the structure, is not productive. But if we say they can legislate their priorities, and we can set that up. One of the things she said too was scope should remain on sewage disposal and avoid unrelated topics like pools and campgrounds. And that's exactly our point. They should be focusing on sewage disposal and avoiding unrelated topics like pools and campgrounds. So our feedback can be the same people that are working on pools and campgrounds should not be working on sewage disposal, because sewage disposal is a priority and should be treated as such. So I think we have to take our feedback and we have to reword it so it's working along those lines. Bob?
Yeah, I'm just really going to mostly agree with what you're saying, and I think Jim brings up a good point. But I think what we can say is we need a team dedicated to the septic system process and approval process. How DPH decides to do that should really be left to them, but we can certainly say that we think it needs to be a greater focus than it is currently. And I think that's great. I think one other thing we could probably try to do is come up with like the short term, the easy goals that, are just like little things around the edges. But then when we get into things like a codes and standards type committee for review, that may be like a higher level. So we could have multiple things. Some stuff we want to see done immediately that should be easy that we can all agree on, and there may be some bigger things that like pie in the sky. I think somebody brought up like I think Sonia actually brought it up. Like, wouldn't it be nice if DPH did all septic systems of all sizes and you don't have this transition from DPH to deep? And I don't know, there may be a legitimate reason why deep handles those, because the large systems are almost like a mini sewer treatment plant. I don't know, but those could be pie in the sky kind of things. Like maybe someday we'll get there, and in a perfect world we do it, but maybe it's not realistic to expect it to happen in the next 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, and I think that's, then where we draw the line between septic systems and on-site disposal versus, sewer systems and off-site disposal. And that's a really good good question, because I think deep runs the offsite disposal. Am I correct in that assumption? Public utilities
Yeah.
and deep partner in that endeavor. I'm just making notes. I'm not sharing my screen just because it's easier to see you guys and make notes at the same time.
And I guess the funding, we have to be a little more broad and not pinpoint that the money has to go directly to, subsurface. That has to be delegated through, through DPH.
Yeah, I don't know that we have to be. I think we can be as direct as we want to be. It's not our job to write the law and write what they vote on. It's our right to highlight the inefficiencies and explain where we think money needs to be spent and where there's room to be maybe money collected. And then it's, it's staffers and lawyers and lawmakers to write the law that supports those recommendations. I want to spend some time later in the week after I have this other meeting and after we kind of spend some time thinking about it, and then get together with maybe just, John, you and I just get together as co-chairs and try to write a concise, capture everything that we've kind of talked about, and then get that back to the group for next week. I think that would be the best way to do that. And maybe you and I can get on the phone right after this and set a time on Friday to get together. A couple things that we alluded to earlier and we have not kind of developed any further, and I just wanted to revisit some of them so we can incorporate those into our conversation. The speed of review and the moonlighting provision, we kind of like that concept. The expediting fee and a exchange, if you will, for different departments, different health districts to pick up work from more busy people to the less busy people, or even taking it a step further and allowing the individuals that work in these organizations to benefit from that moonlighting experience and saying, okay, I can review these 10 plans and I'll have them done by next week. And they burn the midnight oil and they get it done. Do we want to continue to include that in our recommendations? Jim.
We are bound per the Public Health Code in section 1913B103 about we have 20 days to review a plan. That's 20 working days. And then we also are bound that when a septic installer requests for inspection, that we have 2 days to enact that inspection. So that is going to be a code advisory, or that's going to be a code change that would have to definitely go through the legislature. And as far as the moonlighting thing, that's going to be up to the individual health departments or health districts if they want to, pick that up. I just wanted to provide a little reality into that request. Sure, we can make that request, but those requests might have to go through some other hurdles.
Health district opt-in, and I'll tell you, I know those two provisions, the 20 days and the 2 days, but I have probably right now today 6 systems that are outside of that timeline. So that while that's the law, they can violate it at will, and I often get feedback at 19 days of, oh, we need a different test pit for this one. Knowing that they really haven't reviewed it, but they needed to give me a response. So they gave me a response and make me go take another test pit. Or we need more data, or did this, some question that comes back, and then that resets the clock. And I don't think they're doing it to be jerks. I don't think they're doing it to be spiteful. I think they're doing it because they have a fixed number of assets and a bigger pile of work. So, I just the other day, I actually included Matt on an email. I forwarded him an email from a health district that kind of falls under his grouping that, we gave them everything, the beginning of October, and we still didn't have the subdivision plans back, and, it's more than 20 days. It's, more than 40 days, so those were those are the kind of things that I would have gladly said, hey, I know you guys have a lot on your plate. And that's their response was, we're so sorry. We haven't finalized that work. We've worked on it, but we haven't finalized that work. We have another 10-unit subdivision that got added on, and then people wanted to take their vacation because it's use it or lose it, X, Y, and Z. Well, all those are valid concerns and valid reasons. Doesn't help the fact that I'm in front of planning and zoning and wetlands, and I don't have the answer to the fact that the site plan I have is actually a viable site plan. So, and Matt basically came back to me and said, seems like that moonlighting provision would be a pretty good thing for you right now. And I said, absolutely, amen. So, all right, so we still want to pursue it. Let me try to put some words together that give us some framework for lawmakers to go off of, kind of like an exchange system where people can go in and pick up that extra work and share work between health districts for health districts that opt in. Now, if your health district could say, you know what, we don't want to opt into this. I don't think it can be a mandatory thing, but if they don't opt into it and I have an application that goes to 21 days, I'm slamming. I'm losing my mind and I'm stomping and I'm kicking because there was an opportunity for them to meet the deadline. They chose not to opt in. So, that's the kind of the tool that I think would be helpful to us. And other comments on review, speed of review and moonlighting?
Yeah, Matt, I'm going to stop raising my hand because there's a small group on today, so just tell me if I can't talk. To address your concern, and this is something we talked about quite a while ago, was this kind of preliminary approval for subdivisions where it's not a full review. Really, what you need to know is that you've got lots that are capable of supporting a septic system. And we kind of talked about this, and I don't know if we ever kind of resolved how we can do that, but is there a way, whether it's done through the local sanitarian or you do it privately with your own consultants, but somebody signs off that says, for planning and zoning purposes, you can proceed because you've got lots that can support a septic system. That's really all you need to know. Doesn't mean you can have a permit to build a house or that you have an approved septic system designed and approved, but it doesn't hold up your process of getting through the subdivision approval process, or whether it's wetlands or subdivision at planning and zoning. So I still think there's a place there that just doesn't burden the local sanitarian folks or public health district from having to spend all this time on a formal approval that ultimately is going to be thrown in the trash when you come in with your formal site plan 6 months or a year from now to build a house, and they have to do it all over again. Because it's very rare that I can't think of a time that I've ever had a subdivision lot approved and then I built it exactly according to that plan, that there wasn't some sort of a change that happened anyway. And so you're sort of duplicating the concept. That was question one or comment one. The other thing, and maybe just Jim, this is something you can help us with, is if we allow moonlighting or some kind of shared resources between various health districts, how logistically are you guys, I mean, once you're certified, can you work anywhere in the state? Do you need like approval to cross boundaries, or can you just go work anywhere you want? And then the other thing with that would be, how would the billing happen if we hire Jim to help out in your project, even though it's not in his area and he's moonlighting? Do you pay him directly? Do you pay the health district? Like is he a subcontractor? Is he an independent contractor? Is he an employee still of the health district? Like, I'm just thinking of logistics of how we're asking that to work. Like, how does the payment get made?
I think you would pay the health district that you're in. And then, because they're going to do the inspections, they're going to do all that stuff. You're just going to get a plan review from another person. And they're still going to own it. Like Jim's still going to own it, even though he shopped it out to Sam. Go ahead, Jim.
In reality, let's say I want to go moonlight for another health district. I'm going to need approval from my director of health in order to get this moonlighting or second, call it a second job, just based on our personnel policy rules and regulations. So that's going to be let's say that's going to be the first hurdle, and then the second hurdle is going to be liability. You know, if I go to this other health department and I mess up, who's going to be liable? Is that going to be the health district that I'm working for? Am I personally going to be liable, or is the health district that my primary health district going to be liable? So that opens up a whole other can of worms where it has to be written where people are, the sanitarian is protected in some way. Now, obviously, it would have to be proven that if I did something wrong, it would be malfeasance, or if I did something wrong because I'm a human and I missed something. But that's and then the other health district has to be comfortable in allowing an outside sanitarian. Now, we do in the Chatham Health District, we do hire for a person to inspect our food service establishments, and he works for another health district. So we do that, and there's probably other sanitarians that are out there that do work for other health districts on a part-time basis, but they got to get approval from their main employer, and the other health districts got to be comfortable with that person working into in their health district.
And I think that might be, it might not be moonlighting. It might be, Health District A is overworked and Health District C has some capacity. And there's a mechanism that Health District C gets to communicate that they have capacity. And Health District A then says, okay, I need you to review this subdivision for me, and we'll pay your health district X number of dollars. Maybe that's the plan,
A legislator a couple of years ago passed what was called an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. And this might be a key starting point. And this Memorandum of Understanding was basically designed for mobile food trucks. So if a mobile food truck was from Health District ABC, and ABC is part of that MOU, and they got a license from Health District ABC, and they're going to work in Health District XYZ, and XYZ is has an MOU, and all the pertinent information has been placed in the central database. I can then work in Health District XYZ as long as I give them a notification. So I think part of our foundation for this moonlighting would have to be sort of framework, in my theory, sort of an MOU, a memorandum of understanding, and then there would be these rules and regulations and requirements that then a sanitarian can, jump from town to town if they wish, as long as those towns are both under the MOU.
Signatory to that agreement. Yeah, that's a great bit of feedback. I made note of that. Anything else on speed review and moonlighting? I think that's a really good point, and probably a really good vehicle to start from. All right. fee structure and fees reflective of work with district funding, not general funding. So this one was kind of saying that it would be really good if we had a dollar amount that we thought this is what it costs to review a septic plan. And then that is what is charged, that or plus some administrative fee is what is charged every time we do it. Because then that would make it easier to have an exchange across groups or an MOU of saying, okay, you reviewed 10 of these, we say it cost $1,000 per septic to review it. You know, here's the transfer, or you get 80% of it or whatever. So is that something we want to try to look at, trying to get, recommend that they do a study to find out what the actual cost of each septic review is, or is this something we want to just push off?
I don't think it would be that difficult to, I mean, Jim, you guys know how long it takes. If we could just do like even a relatively informal survey amongst the health districts, and individual health departments, we could bundle that with the recommendation. I don't think it's that heavy a lift.
Okay.
And yeah, in reality, sometimes I get a set of plans that are a piece of crap, and they want my review to make it smell like a rose, and that takes a longer time. And if we just talk about a single family lot, so a lot of that time is going to be based on how well the plans were designed, and that's an individual basis. Again, a set of plans by an engineer that meets all the requirements. Obviously, that's going to be a quicker review. But then once you start reviewing and you got to get revisions, now you got to sit and wait for revision time. Again, a septic permit for a brand new house and even for a septic repair in the Chatham Health District is $185. Are we making money on those reviews? No, because that septic permit for $185 also is the review and also covers the cost of the inspection. So we don't have a separate inspection fee. We have one fee which covers the review and with one revision, and then we need more than one revision, then we charge an extra review fee. So $180 is the review and inspections, and those inspections can be pretty detailed, especially if you have to bring in fill, or you got to go out and do a stakeout inspection, then a scarification inspection, and then once the system is in place, then you have to, you do your septic inspections. Then maybe the septic inspections, they're doing a piecemeal based on the weather. They're putting the leaching system in first, and then you go out there and you inspect the leaching system so they can backfill it, and then you got to go back out there when they install the septic tank. So there's a lot of variables that go into all this.
Yeah. So one set of plans could take 10 hours, 3 hours for review and checking calculations. And then you have all the inspections and the communication back and forth, all that kind of stuff. So let's say it's 10 hours. You just paid minimum wage for somebody to review that septic system.
I think 10 hours is pretty extensive. So to me, I would say a perfect plan and a perfect inspection would be 2.5 hours, and that would be including travel time. About an hour to review and approve the plans, and then about an hour to review the permit and approve that, and to go out and do the inspection on a single family house with a 4-bedroom septic system. Should not be more than 2.5 hours. Obviously, if you need revisions, then one more revision, maybe 3.5 hours.
Yeah. What's a bad case scenario?
A bad case scenario would be total time, maybe 5 hours, because that would be like the engineer calling you back and saying, I don't understand this requirement, and you have to explain that requirement before they submit the revised plan. So again, it all depends on how well the original plot plan. And again, another issue too, the plot plan might say we also have to review the house plans. So if the house plans don't match the septic design plan or the plot plan, so we just don't review the plot plan. We review the house plans or building plans, which is if it's commercial property, to make sure that both plans match. But am I going to freak out that the garage on the plot plans to the left side of the house, but on the house plan shows the garage on the right side? I don't freak out over that. Unless so just a personal example.
So how are local fees determined now? Is it completely up to the local health district to determine what the fees are? There's no statute or any other requirement, right? I mean, if you decided you needed to charge twice as much to expedite the process or cover your costs or anything else, there's nothing keeping you from just doing that, right?
Yeah, Matt's stopping me because he was concerned in the beginning that any increase in price is going to get passed on to onto the property owner. But
Right.
no, there's no fees. Obviously, other towns, I think maybe Essex or all those Greenwich, they might charge a higher fee than we do at the Chatham Health District for the same inspection, which is you can say this kind of mind blowing. Same code, same inspections, and why are they getting a different fee than what we do? But our director of health tries to base our fees per the surrounding towns. So we're not the highest, we're not the lowest, and I don't know if a lot of other health directors are looking at that in order to be a little consistent with their surrounding health departments, health districts. But that's what we do. If we are going to raise our fees, the director of health does research of the surrounding health districts and comparable health districts in order to determine if we need to raise a fee. But we haven't raised our fees in the last 2 to 3 years.
So Matt, what I'm thinking is rather than us come up with a fee structure that's going to be universal across the state, we just make a recommendation that the local health districts charge fees reasonable to cover their cost of doing the inspections and doing them in an expedient way. And it could be, I mean, in Jim's situation, it could be like, if you bring me a perfect plan, I'm going to charge you $250. If you bring me a plan and like a re-review process, because I've got you to look at 3 revisions, then I'm charging you $500 for it. And when you guys figure out how to get your plans designed properly the first time, you'll go back to the 250 type thing. I mean, but that's
The fee is,
already allowed.
yeah, I think
Uh,
you're exactly right. The fee is $250, and then it's $100 per re-review.
Something like
So make
that.
sure your
You know,
stuff is
so
tight.
they're getting
Like,
covered. So the guy that does it right doesn't get punished, but the guy that's got a crappy engineer because he charges next to nothing and it's a good deal, but he doesn't know what he's doing, you're going to pay more for the review because you know there's going to be 3 revisions before you're going to sign off on it. And I'm fine with that. I do like the idea of, I mean, it doesn't sound like we have to get crazy detailed in what we want to do at the local level. And we could say we want it to be to cover the cost of the review and inspections and also allow some money to be set aside for education and training at the local level. And then we have a second kind of recommendation, and that is the DPH funding, and whether that's for additional staffing or to come up with the educational programming that we've been talking about. And that could be a second piece. So I'm almost thinking of breaking the recommendations on costs into 2 different buckets. Because
yeah,
that
and I
may
think
take
you could,
legislation and that may not happen because the legislature decides we're not getting another staff person at DPH, or we're not going to set aside a separate fund for education. So, I think they can pick and choose where they want to fight their battles, and if we can get money for both, that would be the perfect world.
And you could also say something along the lines of, well, why not just leave the education fund with the local health district and require Deep to charge for all their training? Okay, we're going to have training on this week in February, and it costs you $500 to attend the training. And as long as your health department is accumulating that, making that savings that's set aside at your health department, then you're like, you know what? We're all going to the training. We got our $1,500. Let's take all three of us and go. Because now that the state doesn't get to put it into the general fund and make it disappear with everything else, the locals are holding on to it and spending it on their own people to get the training. And if the state can't provide the proper training, then Jim gets to say, hey, you know what? Rhode Island has this really shit hot guy, this really great guy who's at the top of the field, and we're going to go to Rhode Island and listen to this guy tell us about soil testing because he's the best guy in the industry on soil testing. Jim, your hands up.
As much as I would love a universal fee for septic systems throughout the state of Connecticut, with a portion of it going to DPH into their funding in order to trickle down into subsurface for training and education. I think that's going to be a far reach and a bigger hurdle to jump, versus if we submit a request for an individual fee per septic permits that goes up to DPH. I think that might be, and then that money trickles down to subsurface for education and training, might be a more realistic way to go. Because then now you're going to tell Greenwich that their $500 septic permit now is only going to be $250. Then that kind of upsets their apple cart with with their budget and stuff like that. Keep the individual fees the same, but there will be I hate to use this word, a mandate of this minimal amount of payment to go up to DPH.
I was gonna say, you just get to say $500, Jim. Come on.
Yes.
All right. Anything else on fees and? I think I captured a lot of things right here, so I can work that into our conversation, our recommendation. I know this one is not very popular, and I just keep ringing the bell because it's part of my pet peeve. But the work from home concession concerns about continuation of knowledge and training. I know that's a union concession that was made several years ago, but I still think that we should make some acknowledgement to it that if a key concern of Deep and DPH, and I've heard it from both, is we are having trouble having continuity of experience and knowledge, and we're having trouble training new people, then maybe working from home isn't the right solution, when you're onboarding new people. So I would like to mention that, unless you guys all want to raise your hand and tell me I'm out of my mind and I should take a back seat.
Again, I think it's in terms of it being a recommendation and laying it out as that, here's the problem. Here is a potential approach to make it better. I don't see a huge issue with including the suggestion in our recommendations.
I was going to say the exact same thing, is that we put in our recommendations that we see this problem. We realize, you can even say, we realize there are labor agreements that could have to be adjusted for that, but that, it's our opinion that having reduction of work from home, or, limited work from home availability, and realizing that it also comes into the ability to hire qualified people that want to work for DPH or Deep, are all factors, but that, working in the office and sharing the knowledge is important. And you guys work out how you make it happen. We're not going to tell you how to fix it or how it gets fixed, but we see it as a problem the way it is working currently.
And it's a contributing factor. Yeah.
We do require a certain amount of time in the office for most employees. So I don't know if
How much time?
what kind of I'm blanking on the exact I think it's at least 60% in office, but don't quote me on that number.
That's higher than I thought it was.
Yeah, so I wonder if um and it varies situationally, sometimes more, especially if you're a new employee, sometimes less if you have other circumstances.
Is that something that you could do a little research on and share with us? Just because I don't want to poke somebody in the eye if they don't deserve to be poked in the eye.
Yeah. I just wonder, like, how is the recommendation turn? Like, is it like are you thinking like 100% in office, or are you thinking, or
I
what?
I don't think that we should make that percentage recommendation. I think we need to say that, you know, from private industry, I my experience has been that when you have people working from home, you have a lot more challenges in training, creation of culture, and retention of knowledge and experience, and then passing that knowledge and experience down. Because like going to training is one thing, but like the day-to-day knowledge that you attain by working with an experienced person, being able to walk over to their desk and be like, I got this issue, can you just take 2 seconds to show me the way? Is so valuable. And I'll go back to the exact platform that we're on right now. Zoom changed their work program to require people in the office, I think 3 days to 4 days a week at Zoom. So they're the people that are are facilitating our ability to work from home. But they require that in-house collaboration. So
Yeah, I think of something that Jim has mentioned, like he can review a site plan in an hour. And you get a new sanitarian that's licensed and gone through all the classes, and they'll spend 8 hours reviewing the same plan that Jim does in an hour because they don't know the codes like the back of their hand. They're referencing back to the book to figure out what's got to be done. And if they did, 10 reviews with Jim sitting with them, they'd be up to speed much more quickly than spending 2 years on their own, working from home on their computer, reviewing applications without any feedback from a guy like Jim telling them to stop worrying about that stuff, or this is what the code says, and I can save you an hour of research because I already know what the answer is to that question. Those are the kinds of things I think we're trying to create opportunities for that shared information. And we're only talking, I mean, we only care about the environmental, I forget what the hell the group is that Matt's running. There's only
DPH
four
and
employees that
yeah.
we're talking about. We don't really care about what's happening to the rest of DPH and Deep. If we want to just put our blinders on and worry about this particular issue we're talking about. We want those 4 people to show up at the office, Adam.
So do you
Matt
mind
ended
just
up being
getting us
double
that
booked
kind of
today, by the
information?
way, so he apologizes for missing.
No, no worries, no worries.
Yeah.
Do you mind just looking that up and maybe shoot me an email with like what
Yeah.
the
I'll see what I
standard
can
is?
find. Yeah.
I appreciate it. Then we had one thing that some of the other groups have been talking about, and we haven't really touched on, but Bob brought up briefly, was failure of existing systems. Everybody wants to keep blaming all these existing systems from failing. That's why we're going to make the new systems really, really stringent. But making the new systems really, really stringent doesn't fix the old systems that are failing. Just like making the energy code really, really stringent for new construction doesn't help the fact that our existing housing stock is extremely inefficient, and that's where we waste all of our electricity and natural gas. So one of the things that he proposed was a lien/loan program that the state would basically have a fund that said, okay, if the local health district finds out that this system is failed and is bleeding into a water course or is causing a noxious smell or whatever the deal is, you can apply, but it happens to be, an 80-year-old woman who's lived in that house for the last 60 years. Somewhere along the line, the tree guy ran over her septic and it's no longer working. It needs to be replaced, but she doesn't have the funds to do it. That this fund could fund the fixing or replacement of that system. A lien goes on to the house and it is paid off when the house is sold, or there's some kind of loan involved where she makes payments if able. Is that something that we want to put into ours, or do we want to leave that out to the other groups that have already addressed it? Jim?
Many decades ago, there was a program out there for funding septic repairs or doing repairs on your house. But there were income requirements that had to be met. And then once you met those requirements, then you had 10 years to pay to pay it off, or you would have to live there 10 years, and after the 10th year, that loan or grant money was paid off. But if you moved out and you sold the house after 5 years, then you would have to reimburse 50% of the cost of that work. So there was a program similar to what you want to bring up in the past, but then again, it's going to have to be income based, and then there's going to be limited funds, and is it going to become first come first serve? So there is a big hurdle for that to get enacted. We can suggest it, but there's a lot more. There's a lot more to that. The thought process is a great idea for certain people, with certain incomes, but it's probably not going to be available for everybody, unless it depends on how it's written and how it's funded.
Yeah, I think it would definitely have to be as a need-based program with financial qualifications.
Yeah, Matt, I can see two areas that we have to think about. One is, I don't know how large the problem is. I mean, I don't know how many septic systems fail in a given year. Is it 100? Is it 1,000? Is it 10,000? I don't know what the number is. And then of those that fail, how many people are claiming they can't afford to repair them? I mean, maybe I'm thinking of a problem that doesn't exist, or maybe it's a huge problem and these things aren't getting fixed because of the costs involved. So I think we need to kind of, at least the first comment would be, if we don't have the data on failures, would be to collect that information, whether that's collected through DPH or is done through the local health districts, and they have to put in an annual report of how many failed septic systems they've addressed in a given year. And if financial considerations were a problem for repairs of those systems. So I think just getting the data would be the first step. And then, unless it's already available, and like I said, I don't know if it is. And then the second step would be, should we ask for funding, and is that funding given to the local health district for distribution? Is it done through DPH? What's that process? And, I'm trying to think of, you put $100,000 or $1 million in a fund. I don't want 80% of it going to administration. I want it to actually get the systems fixed. So I'm not sure what the logistics of it would be, but it's something that we need to at least lay out, or we just need to kind of do a generic recommendation that we don't have to. I don't know that we have to have a recommendation that's perfectly vetted on how it's going to function, other than just say this is something we think we need to be considering.
Jim?
We used to, in the past, separate new septic systems from repair septic systems. We had two different prices, but now we don't separate that out anymore. If you have a septic repair or a brand new septic system installed, we charge one fee of $185. But we also have an additional fee called a maintenance fee. So if you had to replace a distribution box or a distribution line or a building sewer line, you wouldn't have to pay the full septic fee. You would pay this maintenance and upkeep fee of $85. But that would have to be an individual town. You would have to go to each town and see if they can provide a separation of new permits from repair permits. And I don't want to be influenced by the costs. And I made that decision, over 30 years ago. I'm not going to be influenced by the cost of a septic system, new or repair. But it's in the tens of thousands of dollars for a brand new septic system for a repair, and then even more money if you gotta bring fill in and a pump chamber.
How do you identify systems that have failed? Does that just happen usually at property transfer? Does it happen by complaint from neighbors? Who polices this? Who finds it? How do we know these things?
Yes. Usually a failure, or the technical term, is a public health nuisance. A public health nuisance are two things only. A public health nuisance if sewage backs up into the building, or sewage comes to the surface of the ground. That's a public health nuisance. And once the health department or district is aware of a public health nuisance, the director of health shall issue out abatement orders. But we get notifications if there's a septic issue at sales of houses, when the septic installer is out there doing an evaluation. I think a lot of their evaluations are CYA, where they rather say it's a failure than not a failure to protect themselves. Maybe it's the homeowner realizes there's an issue, we get called upon, or if we get called upon if there is a complaint, a neighbor's complaining, and in order to investigate that, if it's in the person's backyard where the sewage is breaking out, we are, by state statute laws, we cannot go past the front of the door. So if it's in the backyard, I can't see it, I can't observe it, then hopefully the complainant will allow me on their property to observe the effluent surfacing to the ground. So either through sales of houses, the property owner themselves notifies us, or a complaint are usually the three top reasons we get involved.
Yeah, and like at sale is not an issue. Like at sale, if you're selling $100,000 house, not that those exist anymore, and you want to sell it and there's no loan on it, then you sell it, but you give them a $30,000 credit or a $25,000 credit for septic replacement. And then that gets done at transfer, or, and it's identified, it has to get CO'd again or whatever the deal is. But it's for those people that can't afford it, and there's that public health issue. So let's word craft it, leave it on there, and let's see, where it goes if everybody's okay with that.
Jim, you just raised an interesting point, and I don't know, it's not really in our charge, but I'm shocked that you guys can't go on private property for inspection purposes. Surveyors can do that. I think wetlands officers can. I'm not sure, John, if planning and zoning staff, ZEOs and stuff have the right to go on to private property. And I can't imagine a health sanitarian couldn't do that for public health reasons.
There's usually basically a waiver permission that included with application forms. Like if you're applying for this, then you authorize us to visit the property.
But to investigate a complaint, to walk on. So Matt complains that Bob's septic system is exposing to the surface of the ground. But your septic system, Bob, is in the front yard. I can drive by, I see it, I observe it, bam, we're issuing you out a public health order or notice of violation. Matt complains that Bob's septic system is blowing out of the ground, and your septic system is in the backyard, and I cannot observe it from the front door. By statute, that's as far as I can go. I just can't go willy nilly around your property, you know. But if Matt is a neighbor and he allows me to go on his property to observe it, then that's how I gain access. So we don't want to be big brothers, but we are. But once a permit, as what John is saying, once a permit is issued, I'm allowed on that property, especially if you're building a brand new house. I am walking through that house to make sure that you're building it according to the plans that I approved with the number of bedrooms. So I'm allowed to, I have access because there's a permit that has been issued and approved, allowing me onto the property.
Matt, I don't know if it's even part of our charge for this working group, but that just seems like an odd one. That would be an easy recommendation that they should be authorized with a legitimate written complaint that they could evaluate, visually inspect a property or something to that effect. And I don't know if you want to, burden our
then it gets
report
into
with
law
something that,
enforcement though. Then it's like, oh, well, we made a septic complaint just so the Jim will go into the backyard and find that they're illegally raising dogs or they're growing, marijuana, and then it's fruit of the blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
Everybody's privacy is always so hard to get around.
maybe that's if we get that codes and standards type group for the advisory committee, that's just one of their charges to look at that process or something. Maybe we just put it like under that little heading, just sort of a side note or something, a footnote on our report.
Matt, I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to jump off. I'm available pretty broadly on Friday if you want to touch base to
Okay.
coordinate.
All right, sounds good. Me too.
Thanks, John. Appreciate all your help.
Thanks, guys.
Hey, another great meeting, guys. We're 2 minutes left, so let's call it a day unless anybody has any parting thoughts. But again, thank you guys so much. Go ahead, Jim.
Yes, I think we need to have something in our hands to review, because we got to get something up to the committee, and I think we need to. I'm looking forward to yours and John's writing of our draft requirements. So I think that's a great idea, so we can get this thing going and moving forward.
Sounds
Yeah,
good.
Matt, do you have any idea when we're going to get like this consolidated report from all the various groups into one document that we're all going to start looking at some point?
We've gone through, I think we've already blown the timeline, but I think it's, by the end of this year, we're supposed to have it out.
So we're
So
running out of
together, and then
Yeah.
then we put it to legislators after that. So we're trying.
Yeah.
I think this is such a broad scope of work and unfortunately, I'm very inexperienced at it. So it's hard to I think there's equal inexperience on all the levels and all the groups. So
No, it's been very educational for me. I've learned maybe more than I want to know about septic systems, Jim.
I know.
Doing this. So I appreciate everybody's feedback and help, and we'll keep pushing along. I'm looking forward to a final report that we can get out sometime in early January.
Yep. Sounds good. And Peter, if you want to just go ahead and send us a meeting for next week, same time, same station. And the agenda item will be review recommendation letter drafted by John and Matt.
All right, I'll work on that. I'll send that right after this meeting.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.